Hey, this video is a little overdue, and I apologize for that. Just been a busy start to the semester, as I'm sure you know. But I wanted to answer the all the questions that came from the DB1 Personal Intros, our discussion board there. And I wanted to say thanks, first of all, for all you taking the time to sort of introduce yourselves and provide all that detail. It's really great to sort of get a sense of everybody in electronic format, if you will. And so I wanted to obviously repay the favor in terms of addressing the questions that you asked. So I'm going to get right to them to not take too much time here, and I'll move relatively quickly. But thanks again for all the questions. What movie, book, or piece of writing has had the greatest impact for you? Um, the one book that sort of steps up immediately into my mind is a book called by Gertrude Stein called Stanzas and Meditation. She's a female poet, modernist poet. And the book, I don't necessarily recommend it. It's a very weird book. It's a long serial poem that is, as far as most people would pick up and read, it just seems like a bunch of nonsense. But she tries to use language in a way not for its denotative qualities or its literal qualities, right? So when she uses the word like apple, she's not interested in using that word for how it references or denotes an actual piece of fruit that is an apple. She uses that word for its sound qualities. Maybe almost like a Dr. Seuss kind of vibe. Anyway, so that book is one that sort of steps up into my mind. Growing up, what did your passion for things for something change as you got older? I mean, I don't know that. I mean, I think I had a passion. When I started out, I wanted to be a filmmaker. I thought I wanted to go into film, and I used to make films as a young kid with my brother, and then as I got older by myself. And this was kind of before cell phone technologies and all that. And I even went to the University of Southern California, which has like the best film school in the country, or one of the best. And I actually never ended up applying to the film school because by the time I got to college, I spent my first couple semesters there as undecided, and just I found that I really actually enjoyed literature and writing above all, and so I went that route. So I don't see them as too different. I mean, filmmaking is one ways in which you can be super creative, and so is critical writing. And you might be surprised to hear that, but critical writing to me is one of the ways you can be really imaginative and really sort of get a kind of analytical power in that I really enjoy. So yeah, it kind of changed. I still love films, and I don't make many films at all, but I still love film. Will this class include any creative writing assignments on that note? And not in the sense of if you're thinking about are we going to be writing poems or are we going to be writing short stories or fiction. We're not doing that, or drama. We're not doing that in this kinds of classes without thinking about the genre of critical analysis. But I think that entails a lot of creativity. So even in things like discussion boards, we're going to be using our imagination, our creativity to come up with ideas, to explore those ideas. So I think those are acts of imagination that are just as active as the imagination is, even in like when you're writing a poem, let's say. Was it hard for you to become a writing teacher, and what challenges did you face? I mean, one thing that, and this is not unlike writing, one thing that teaching does is it does kind of challenge you. If you let it, it challenges you all the time, right? And I think that's important to sort of hold in mind as a teacher. My favorite thing about teaching is being part of a group, and like our group, and we all have our different ideas and perspectives, and hopefully we all bring those to the table, and it's really about exploring those ideas and being surprised by other people's ideas, appreciating, disagreeing, but still respecting, of course, always. That's really what I love about teaching, and in that sense it can be really challenging. I didn't really I didn't I initially started teaching, and this was another question. um, was being a college writing teacher the original career path? Not at all. It was to be. I started teaching initially just to subsidize my PhD, to pay for my education, and so I started teaching a writing class, and actually found that I really loved it. Prior to that, though, I had taught creative writing classes for my master's degrees and loved that as well for the reasons I kind of said above, in the way that it's kind of viewing the class as a kind of laboratory in which we can sort of come together and share these ideas and really sort of explore them in a way that you don't have many opportunities to do in the quote unquote real world, right? I don't know how many people want to sit down and talk about little babies, the bigger picture, at length, at my day job, so to speak. Or maybe they do, but we really can't spend that much time doing it. So that's really what I love about the teaching, the classroom scenario. Um, do you prefer teaching college students over high school students? Well, I've never taught high school students. I did mentor junior high school students or middle high school students at one point. Um, so I don't really know. I can't answer that question. The thing that I like teaching about college students is just a little bit more of a sense of their independence. I find, and this is unfair to high school students because I've never taught high school students, but I feel like college students are really, you know, you're sort of taking on this, like, I'm going to go on this educational experience. I'm really pursuing some sort of path. I think they have a little bit more uh, care and investment in the education than maybe high school students. That's obviously not to discount high school students, or there's plenty of high school students who have care and invested. But I just think at this age, at a college age, I should say, that responsibility, that investment, that appreciation comes forward a little bit more, maybe. Um, is there any activity, assignment, or book or story that you've wanted to use for this class but weren't able to use? Um, how has that affected the way you teach this class? It's almost like the invert. I pretty much allow whatever, as long as it's not some sort of like slanderous, gratuitous material. I think anything is up for discussion and analysis. Even gratuitous and slanderous material is up for discussion and critique. I mean, obviously, we want to do well by respecting one another, and hate speech and stuff like that is not cool. But I don't know that there's ever like a particular text I wanted to teach. The thing that I'm wary about that is that I don't view it as my job to sort of give you the good material, and that's because that's what I think is good material. Um, in fact, that sort of goes against my principle behind the class, my ideal for the class. Whereas you guys will bring in your ideas, you guys will bring in things to analyze and think about and discuss that will really sort of bring out, hopefully, more of the sort of rich diversity of the group. Um, what advice do you have for us in terms of dealing with social challenges while still trying to pursue our dreams? How do we turn down the noise? I mean, really an excellent question. Um, and maybe this isn't the best answer. I mean, I think, well, let me answer this two ways. One, your mental health and your happiness should take precedent over everything. I think it's very easy for us to ignore our own mental health, um, or taking time to take care of our mental health. I mean, even if it's just small things you know, like I like to walk my dog around the block. If I'm getting overwhelmed, just take a little break, go outside, go for a stroll, or just talking to somebody for a little bit, right? So I think that's number one. Is it important you sort of you have ways and methods for sort of taking care of yourself and checking in on your mental health. Number two, the other thing is I don't, as far as pursuing your passions, I like to view it as part of my passion is to be in touch with what's going on. Now, there's a lot of noise, so I don't have, and this is a personal preference. It's not like I don't like social media. I think it's something that's interesting, but for me, it's too much noise. And so I don't use social media. I mean, I lurk on Twitter because I get news from Twitter, but I've never sent a tweet. I don't have a Facebook. I don't have an Instagram. And that's just me. So that's how I turn down the noise is I just avoid some of those things. But the other thing is, like I said, is the noise is in some cases important. I listen to the noise and try and make use of it. So, the noise around, issues of, and this might not be what the question is referring to, but, a lot of the sort of social and political upheaval that we see, I think it's important to pay attention to, not to sort of necessarily like, uh, important to pay attention to and listen to and try and think about, and how does it relate to your own life and your own future. So, those kind of two long answers to that question. Are there any benefits for learning how to write essays in the long run, like in later in life or in adult life? This is Kim S's question, which is a really good one. And I will talk about this more, but I think it's a great question in the sense like you might be saying to yourself, so this is my last class as far as the first year writing program. Am I ever going to write a central claim driven essay again? Maybe not. Are you going to be writing essays in other classes? Probably. Are they going to be exactly like classes you write in 106? Maybe not. Okay, so then why are we doing this? Well, because I think what the essay actually is an experiment in critical thinking. It forces you to critically think about various issues and make meaning out of things. It teaches you that ability. So it's sort of like, I compare it to like practicing a sport, right? So let's say I'm a like when I was just played soccer, right? We would run wind sprints, and then we'd run hills, and then we would run um, I forget what they call them, but you would run to like the 5 yard line and back, 10 yard line and back. I feel like they maybe they're called suicides. There's awful conditioning things. Okay. Now, all those activities, right, that we did in practice are not things we do in the game, right? I mean, yes, we're running and sprinting and stuff like that, but the actual activity is not something that we're doing in the game per se. I'm not running back and forth from the 5 yard line to 10 yard line. But the act of doing that exercises those parts of my body that I will be using and exercises builds my conditioning so I can be better at the game. So I view that as what writing an essay is like. You might not ever write another essay again as you go on to run your own, I don't know, art business. But the fact that you have the ability to critically think and analyze things and interpret things and make meaning out of things, I think is a skill that will make you enjoy and appreciate your life if you didn't have that skill. So absolutely, it might not seem like this. I believe in that, and I know that can sound a little cheesy. But can you recommend any books similar to the 48 Laws of Power? I've never heard of the 48 Laws of Power, um, so maybe I have no power. But it sounds like it's probably kind of like like a self empowerment book or a self help book. Um, I don't know. I don't read too many books in that genre. So I can't really recommend a book related to that. I kind of find almost anything empowering, like I said, that analytical skill. Like when I look at it, even if I'm watching something I don't really like, if I can analyze it and think about how it's affecting me and what it means in different ways, that actually is kind of rejuvenating for me. So my number one law of power is the ability to critically think, critically engage. What are some methods to help get you through procrastination? I actually saw there's a TED talk out there. I don't even know who it was, but somebody recommended it to me because I think we all procrastinate. Um, Almost all of us, I would say. Um, so two things I would say here is one is try and be as organized as you can. I mean, I do this. I have like a to-do list. I don't really have I've never like had a planner or a calendar to sort of, but being organized is key. So like laying out the different things I need to do, particularly in these times of pandemic where everything is online. I think it's important to be able to do that. So I know like, okay, do this, do this, do this, get this done by then. That helps me with procrastination. But the other thing that I was referencing that TED talk about was this person argued that procrastination, it's not necessarily a horrible thing. In some ways, it's how you get things done. It forces you to get done. Now, I know that's maybe not something a teacher should say to their students, but I think how can you understand how to make procrastination productive? So for me as a writer, I'm kind of always thinking about whatever it is I'm working on, even indirectly. So if I'm writing a paper about, little babies, the bigger picture, I'm comparing other songs I hear to that song. I'm kind of always doing that work. How is it that, so sometimes it's good to sort of like just read, understand the task that you have to get done and walk around with it in your head, and sort of talk to yourself about ideas, as you walk around or as you ride the train or, while you're in the shower or whatever it might be. So those are some ideas about procrastination. When did you know that you wanted to teach? I think I sort of mentioned this. Um, I mean, it was really just when I started teaching for my master's degrees and having a class, uh, you know, all of us come together and sort of pitch in ideas just was something that really attracted me to it. Finally, what are your top three expectations for your students at the beginning of the semester? Um, I don't know if I have expectations. I have hopes. And there's a couple of things here that I'll bring up, and then this is the last question. One is that um, there's there's two different things involved in being a student. One is studenting, right? Studenting skills, as they say. So there's the class and getting all the work done, being on time, right? Being active. That's a studenting skills. And then you just have your person and who you are as a thinker and and a speaker and your character, if you will. So my top three hopes are, sure, I want everybody to be the best student they can. In other words, engage with the material, get the work done, turn it in, da 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 da, right? Turn it in on time, those things, right? Take care of your responsibilities. That's part of life, right? Hitting those due dates or deadlines or whatever, showing up to work on time every day. Those are things that we need to do. So those studenting skills, I guess, would be an expectation of my students. My hope is that students will also be brave to be themselves, right? And be respectful of one another, of course, but at the same time, be open, be willing, and hopeful to explore to various ideas and even to sort of talk about issues and even appreciate perspectives maybe that they don't agree with or that they're not comfortable with and so part of that is also just being energized, right? We all have bad days. We all aren't into it on some days, but I think trying to be energized, not just for yourself, but also for us as a group and a community, is a way that I think something that I hope that my students will have, that we all can have. Me too, when it comes to this class. So on that note, thanks for all your questions and thanks for listening this long. Um, and we'll talk soon. All right, ciao.